So a few months after we got the call, it was time to jump into rehearsal. We got our scripts in December, came to the theater for what's called Super Saturday, where you get your measurements, you get your script, you do we even sang through a number as a cast for the first time, and then it was go time. And I don't know how you guys felt, but I had 95% of my part memorized from last time.
Did you? Oh.
Everything except for like the plot development stuff that was like in between scenes.
Yeah.
It just came flooding back.
Mine was a little more progressive. I feel like when I do a show, I like put it on the shelf, and then I have to look at it for maybe a week or two, and it comes back. But
2 weeks after, I've forgotten everything.
It's like a test in school, right? You study, take a test, and then.
Especially all the stuff in between, like the plot, pushing things. I'm just like, we sang this? I don't even remember this.
But I do remember actually in that first Super Saturday rehearsal, just feeling all the memories come flooding back. Like, wow, we're doing this again.
One day more.
Well, especially when you saw the faces of like Adam Dietlein and Josh Richardson, who played Javert and Thénardier, who were in the production with us 7 years ago. It felt like riding a bike. Like we're just picking up right where we left off, and it was just time to do it again. A little bit bigger, a little bit better.
The thing that was the biggest challenge was this whole COVID thing. And the producers told us we wouldn't be able to do callbacks. So we put out the net and we said, just send in your video auditions. We got over 1,000, like 1,100 video submissions. And I think that easily 725 of those were on my own. And I was like, this song will not leave me alone. As soon as I started listening to auditions, I knew that this production would be even stronger than the last because the talent that was coming out. I mean, COVID it's like an attack on this art, an attack on singing, an attack on performing. And everybody was hungry to get out there and to do this show that they love. And it was a perfect storm because everyone came out for this show.
The best of the best were auditioning, hoping to get into this extraordinary show. And so the talent level is just off the charts in every single role. Every single character is super strong, and even as many times as we've seen it, it still gets us. It still causes that emotional, as my grandma Hale would say, it gives us an emotional bath as we watch that show unfold.
Towards the barricade!
But this time it was a little bit different because the rehearsal process was like socially isolated, distance. We had masks on. We had to sing with masks, and that brought a whole new dynamic.
Rehearsing in a pandemic was an experience, to say the least. First of all, it was a different space completely because the Hale Center Theater had gone from their location in West Valley City to the new facility in Sandy. And in West Valley, the rehearsal hall was part of the theater building. And in Sandy, it's actually a building across the street, a warehouse, which acoustically is no singer's friend. And then you couple that with basically muzzling the singers with these masks, and it became difficult to hear. For me, the most frustrating part was as you're trying to get into the character in an emotional way, and the only thing you have to go off is someone's eyes. Made it a bit of a challenge.
In the rehearsal room is definitely very interesting. Obviously, our stage has so many different capabilities, a lot of technology, and to be in a warehouse essentially with a carpet floor that we kind of pick up and rotate to be sort of what it's gonna be like isn't ideal. But it works.
We called it the magic carpet.
That's what I called it.
Magic carpet.
Susan says there's nothing magical about it.
And sometimes somebody would be finishing a solo and they just stay while they get moved by the cast.
We were worried about, obviously Les Mis is a cast full of singers, And singing in a warehouse is kind of has the potential to thrash your voice. And people oversing, and it's just not great. And also with masks, it makes it even worse. I don't know, the cast did a really great job of being able to adapt there and really like learn the show so incredibly quickly. Like both Dave, the director, and I were so impressed with the cast and just how quickly and how prepared everyone learned everything, and just how we were kind of just canceling rehearsals a lot at the end because we were like, you guys are ready, you really need to just be on stage at this point.
So the last 2 days of rehearsal, we did take our masks off, and we finally discovered that our castmates have faces.
It's like we've basically re-met everybody.
Yeah.
Because it's like, oh, that's what you look like.
What a beautiful smile you have.
Kelly DeHaan, the music director, told this story about a kid he knew that was a wrestler and just like super small for his age, and how he just had to like fight that much harder to compete. And he told that story because in a way we were in a similar position. Like we were disadvantaged by having these masks on, which in a way I think caused us to be a little bit stronger. I mean, you have to, your breathing is harder when you have a mask on. It's harder to sing and project. You really have to make sure you're not over singing and hurting your voice. And so in a weird way, I think it maybe even prepared us a little bit more, like conditioning wise, to be able to do the show.
As producers, we go in and see each show that's in rehearsal about 2 weeks before it hits the stage here.
We don't see it with makeup. There's no mics. It's just raw.
We had been hearing, of course, about how magnificent all of these actors were in the show, and the extreme high level of talent that each one has. And so for me, when I first saw it, knowing and being very well acquainted with the story, I wanted to just sit back and see what I felt. I don't think I had any notes because the emotion of the story was coming through so beautifully. And to see all of the actors so invested in the show, and to recognize that they were doing something that was so unique, and the reverence, if you will, it felt like the cast, they understood how privileged they were to do a show like this, that it seemed like they reverenced the fact that they had the privilege of being in it.
To see that that it's not a job so much for the amazing actors in both casts, because we do double cast and both casts are magnificent, that it doesn't feel like a job. It feels like a joy every time we see people out there and as they're working with each other.
For this particular show, I've had Derek Smith as my double twice, and he's just like the best guy in the world. This former Marine, you know, super strong, super manly, super funny, and he's just great to be around.
Yeah, so one of the reasons they have two casts here is that most people who do shows here have day jobs. You know, we have our day jobs and we go to rehearsal and the performance is in the evening. And so to make it easier to manage schedules, they have two casts, which for this show is so important because they add so many shows because of demand. And so there's just so many shows. And along those lines, my double, Kyle Olson, we were doubles last time as well. And I feel the same about Kyle. He's just one of the best guys out there, so talented, and so willing to step in and do what he needs to do. My schedule, especially right now, is crazy with work and family and everything. And he steps in and does those shows that I can't do, and just such a delightful person.
And I was the lone guy who got a double that I hadn't performed with before, Matthew Sanguin, who was a brilliant actor, great vocalist. But it was fun to work with him because I think we're very different Marii, if you'd call a plural Marius that. You know, I'm a little bit older, he's a little bit younger, but I think we complemented each other very well. And together we're able to bring a combination of strength and youthful energy to a character that kind of goes on this emotional roller coaster throughout the show. So it was really fun to work with him and to glean off of his perspectives and experience. So after a couple months of rehearsals and trying to figure this all out, it's time to move into the theater. And Tech Week is fast, it's furious, it's chaotic, and honestly, just about the time you think that things are going to fall apart, it's opening night. Ready
All
for an
comes
audience.
together.
Here, so it's not everyone.
Oh, it's gonna be hard.
Tech Week is honestly, I'm not gonna lie, it's one of my favorite parts of a creative process, even though it's so stinking hard. It's basically the moment in production where you have actors coming together with technicians, coming together with designers, to really take every single element of the show and meld it together.
Fire in the hole!
Fire in the hole!
We are doing some gun training and
Yes.
learning how to fire these things.
These things are heavy. Like,
Yeah, they're like
pretty
real
heavy.
guns.
They are. They're real black powder
made for
muskets
stage.
and pistols.
What people don't know is this actually conceals a wand,
It's a stylus for our tablet.
and so I'm gonna throw this away and just cast some unforgivable spells.
So tonight we're in the space. We've got the barricade pieces all laid out, and we're gonna go through our scenes at the barricade, some of the fight scenes and some of the singing parts. Tonight we actually learned how to use the real weapons that we're gonna be using in the show. They are doctored a bit, so they don't fire anything. They're stage weapons. So I'm excited for it. It's gonna be fun.
There was a lot of definitely worry about what they call, I guess, transfer trauma here, that there's a lot of trauma that the show goes through transferring from the rehearsal space to here and getting it from what it was cleaned back there to be, and then transfer that here and clean it again. And it's really cool to see just so much beauty and creation come out of problems. Tech Week is kind of the moment where we're like, oh, that's gonna be an issue. And then very quickly have to say, okay, what can we do to fix this issue so that we can make it?
So it starts just first and foremost with the complexity of the stage itself, which again has levels, things go up, things go down, things go in and out. And then you start putting in props and you start putting in, significant set pieces like the barricade, and you have to figure out like down to the, where do you put your foot? What can you grab onto? What can you not grab? And then you've got the production elements of the fog and the lighting that just all together makes it that magical theater experience.
Transitioning from the rehearsal space to the actual performance space is really exciting. Everything becomes very real. You're able to have the real props that you're going to use. You have your costumes, and you're just able to step into the role like you weren't able to do quite fully in the rehearsal space.
Let him live. If I die, let me die. Let him live.
Obviously costuming, hair and makeup, all those different elements that also get added in, like backstage to where everyone's dressing, has quick changes, running from pit to stage, sometimes to loading level, to be able to get all the things that we need done in the show.
We're using a small cast. I think the original cast was upwards of 40, 50 people in the show, and we've got it down to in the 20s. And so that takes a lot of legwork beforehand. Then once you're into the show, it's just a matter of teaching it, making sure it's stylistically appropriate, that the actors aren't taking too much license with a show that you love, like church, and just making sure that it's perfect. And then, just making sure that it maintains that level throughout the run.
I remember sitting there at one of the last dress rehearsals, and I mapped out all of my path backstage because I was feeling so much anxiety of like, I'm gonna miss my entrance here. Where do I go on? Where do I get that prop? There's just so many things backstage that you have to learn and do. You have like no margin for error.
And it's dark.
Yeah.
And
it's a circle.
It's a circle. And there's all these entrances, and you have to figure out which way to go and what. Yeah.
So one of the things that I learned rehearsing is the very first song, Jean Valjean's Soliloquy. I go down, and I'm so disoriented. I have no idea where I am, but I have to run super fast to a very quick change. And so what I asked the cast down there that's loading on to do is like pound on the stage. I'm like a dog. They're like, come here, boy, come here, boy.
That's
not-
why
he's
they
not
do
lying.
that.
We
I thought they were
literally do
just saying,
We're literally calling for Casey backstage.
Well, I started to do it on my side, so I hope you don't come out that side.
That explains why you went that way one night.
I did. I totally did. I was like, where am I?
Sorry, mate. I was just like, good job, Casey.
That was you.
Yeah.
I remember watching him run that way and be like, he's gonna miss his next entrance.
Oh no. I didn't know.
funny.
There you go.
Yeah, Tech Week is pretty hectic, but it's honestly like some of the best moments because obviously like you can't have joy without struggle. So Tech Week's a struggle, but you see it all come together and it's like honestly so worth it.
The creative team for Les Mis is for the most part, the same creative team that we had the first time. Casey Udy, Kelly DeHaan, Dave Tinney, Mark and Sally Dietlein, and of course there's dozens of others behind the scenes that make it all happen. But I think that this group of core creatives are some of the best in the industry. I mean, literally, they're amazing. Dave Tinney is such an amazing director to work with. He really gets to the heart of the storytelling.
Yes.
And he has such a great eye to see what he can do as a director to position things a certain way or to set them up so that it just tells a clearer story.
One word that I would use to describe the creative team would be heart.
Yeah.
That's exactly how I'd say it. Heart. They help us, not only did they help us find the heart of the story, but they just put everything they had into the story.
When we heard that Casey and Brad and Bradley had an interest to come back and reprise their roles, I just can't tell you how thrilled we were. And it's really cool to see the growth. You were great before when we did it 7 years ago, but my goodness, when I hear you guys singing, when I hear you speaking lines, when I watch you, man, it just doesn't get any better.
Watching that kind of growth and just being dumbstruck that somehow we've been lucky enough to have these kinds of people on the stage have been just amazing to us personally over the years, and we're very humbled by it. And you three are a shining example of that. So thank you for bringing so much joy.
I know they're busy, but I'm so glad to have them back in my world for a minute. Because really that's what they do best. These three men, they communicate honesty through music like nobody else. And that's part of the draw, that you're seeing them. I'm sure they're playing Marius and they're playing Enjolras and they're playing Jean Valjean, but you're seeing how they feel about those things. And you can't teach that. It's just what they bring.
Well, in a way, we've grown up with these guys, and particularly Kelly. I mean, he's music directed, shows since I was a teenager. And so to get to work with him again, I mean, literally 15 years later almost, or 7 years later in the context of Les Mis was just awesome because, again, it felt familiar, but he still knew how to keep it fresh and how to pull another level out of us vocally. That's one thing I love about those directors is what was is never good enough. It's like, how do we make it better? How do we make it stronger? How do we make it more impactful? And they both are brilliant at doing that.